Welcome back to the Paranormal Inc. Ohio podcast, the podcast where we explore the strange, the unexplained, and sometimes the truly disturbing. I'm your host, Ed. Tonight's episode is unlike anything we've covered before. We've talked about haunted asylums, cursed objects, urban legends, and supernatural encounters. But tonight we are stepping into a world that doesn't rely on ghosts to be terrifying. Instead, we're looking at a real extremist movement that blends occult symbolism and neo-Nazi ideology and violent criminal acts. This is the story of the Order of the Nine Angles, often abbreviated as the O9A. Before we begin, I want to make something very clear. This episode is for educational purposes only. Nothing discussed here should be interpreted as support or admiration for extremist beliefs or organizations. We'll be relying on documented reporting, academic research, and publicly available court records to separate fact from rumor. In no way, shape, or form do I back the Order of the Nine Angles. In no way, shape, or form do I support the Order of the Nine Angles. So with that being said, turn down the lights, lock your doors, and let's begin. The shadows of the 1970s. If you search the internet for the Order of the Nine Angles, you probably come away more confused than informed. Some websites describe them as a satanic order. Others call them neo-Nazis. Some insist they're merely an elaborate hoax. Others argue they're one of the most dangerous extremist movements to emerge from modern occultism. The truth is complicated. The earliest known references to the Order of Nine Angles appeared in the United Kingdom during the late 1970s. The writings were attributed to a mysterious figure using the name Anton Long. To this day, no one has definitely proven who Anton Long really was. Many researchers believe the name was a pseudonym used by a British man named David Myatt. Although Myatt has repeatedly denied being Anton Long, whether those denials are truthful remains one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the organization. Unlike traditional satanic groups, O9A wasn't interested in theatrical rituals or symbolic rebellion. Instead, their writings promoted something much darker. They argued that people should deliberately reject society's moral rules. They glorified chaos, violence, conflict, and the destruction of civilization itself. Not your Hollywood Satanists. When most people hear the word Satanism, they imagine horror movies, pentagrams, candles, black robes. Hollywood has spent decades creating that image, but O9A wasn't trying to imitate horror films. In fact, many researchers argue their use of occult symbolism served another purpose entirely. It became a recruiting tool. The organization mixed elements of ceremonial magic, pagan traditions, occult philosophy, and political extremism into a single worldview. According to their writings, committing crimes, embracing hardship, and rejecting conventional morality were ways to evolve into what they called a stronger individual. This philosophy became known among researchers as insight roles. Members were encouraged to infiltrate organizations, take on false identities, and immerse themselves in dangerous environments, not necessarily because they believed in those organizations, but because they saw it as a way to gain experience and spread chaos. The idea would later become one of the reasons intelligence agencies began paying close attention to the O9A. Fact, fiction, or propaganda. One of the hardest parts about researching the Order of Nine Angles is separating reality from deliberate misinformation. The group has spent decades surrounding itself with myths. Some of those myths were created by followers. Others may have been written by the founders themselves. Researchers believe confusion benefits the organization. If no one can determine what's true, then it's harder for law enforcement to understand how the group operates. Unlike traditional organizations, the O9A doesn't have a clear headquarters, no official membership list, no worldwide leader making public appearances. Instead, experts describe it as a decentralized network of individuals and small cells spread across different countries, often operate independently while sharing the same literature and ideology online. That structure has made the movement especially difficult to track. The first warning signs. For years, many people dismissed the O9A as little more than a fringe occult writings, but over time, investigators began noticing something disturbing. People arrested for violent crimes, neo-Nazi activities, terrorism investigations, and even murders were sometimes found possessing O9A literature or openly identifying with its ideology. Now, it's important to be precise here. Owning extremist writings doesn't automatically prove someone committed crimes because of those writings. But investigators repeatedly found the same books, the same symbols, and the same philosophy appearing in multiple unrelated criminal investigations across different countries. The pattern prompted growing concern among counterterrorism researchers. What many once dismissed as obscure occult fiction was increasingly being linked to real-world extremist violence. Why the FBI, the MI5, and other agencies paid attention. By the late 2010s, governments and security researchers were no longer treating the O9A as merely an odd occult movement. Instead, analysts began describing it as an extremist ideology capable of inspiring acts of terrorism and other serious crimes. Unlike many extremist groups that seek political power through elections or organized movements, O9A writings often encourage followers to accelerate the collapse of society through violence and chaos. This concept, known as acceleration, holds that increasing disorder and conflict can hasten the destruction of existing systems, allowing a new order to emerge. It's this embrace of violence, rather than occult beliefs alone, that has drawn the attention of law enforcement and intelligence agencies. So who really created the Order of the Nine Angles? Was it Anton Long, a single man, or a carefully constructed identity? How did a fringe occult philosophy become associated with violent extremists around the world? And what happened when investigators began uncovering crimes connected to people influenced by its ideology? That's where we'll continue. In the second part, we'll examine O9A's beliefs in greater detail, explore how its writings intersected with neo-Nazi extremism, and look at why experts consider it one of the most unsettling extremist movements of the modern era. The ideology of chaos. This is part 2 of our deep dive into one of the most controversial and disturbing extremist movements to emerge from the modern occult world, the Order of Nine Angles, also known as O9A. In part 1, we explored the group's mysterious origins. In Britain during the 1970s, the shadowy figure known as Anton Long, and how the organization evolved into decentralized extremist network. Now, we'll examine what the group actually teaches, why researchers believe the ideology is so dangerous, and how it has attracted the attention of counterterrorism investigators around the world. As always, this episode is presented for educational purposes. The ideas discussed here are not endorsed by Paranormal Inc. Ohio, and our goal is to understand how extremist groups operate, not to promote their beliefs. A different kind of Satanism. One of the biggest misconceptions about the Order of Nine Angles is that it's simply another satanic organization. Researchers say that's an oversimplification. Unlike groups that treat Satan as a symbolic figure or focus on personal freedom, O9A's writings encourage followers to reject conventional morality and deliberately seek experience that breaks social norms. Their literature often praises conflict, hardship, and lawlessness as tools for personal transformation. The group also blends elements of occultism, pagan traditions, esoteric philosophy, and political extremism into a worldview that is intentionally difficult to define. Scholars have noted that this ambiguity appears to be part of the group's strategy, making it harder to understand and easier to adapt. One of the most alarming ideas associated with O9A is accelerationism. In this context, accelerationism is the belief that society should be pushed toward greater instability and conflict, so that existing political and social systems eventually collapse. Rather than working through peaceful political change, extremist accelerationists seek to deepen divisions and encourage disorder. Researchers have warned that this ideology has influenced a variety of violent extremist movements, not just the O9A, and that it can inspire individuals to commit crimes in the belief that they are helping bring about a larger social collapse. This is one of the reasons security agencies have paid close attention to O9A linked writings. The insight role. Another unusual concept found in O9A literature is something called the insight role. According to the group's writings, followers may adopt false identities or immerse themselves in different environments as a way of gaining experience and testing themselves. Researchers have argued that this idea has sometimes been interpreted as encouraging infiltration of political groups, military organizations, religious institutions, or other parts of society. It's important to note that simply belonging to an organization does not mean someone is an O9A follower. However, investigators have expressed concern this concept could make extremist recruitment more difficult to detect. The internet changes everything. For years, O9A existed mostly through printed writings and small circles of followers. The internet changed that. Digital forums, encrypted messaging apps, and online file sharing made it easier for extremist literature to spread across national borders. Instead of one central organization directing members, researchers describe O9A today as a loose network of individuals, small groups who share ideas online. The decentralized structure makes it challenging for law enforcement because there may be no formal membership, headquarters, or chain of command when ideas turn into crime. Over time, investigators began encountering individuals who possessed O9A writings during criminal investigations. It's important to be careful here. Reading extremist material does not automatically cause someone to commit a crime, and not everyone who encounters these writings becomes violent. However, multiple court cases and law enforcement investigations in different countries have involved people who identified with, promoted, or were influenced by O9A ideology while also facing serious charges. These cases have included allegations involving terrorism, violent assaults, hate crimes, and other serious offenses. That pattern has led counterterrorism researchers to study the movement more closely. Why researchers take O9A seriously. Many fringe occult groups never attract significant attention from law enforcement. O9A is different. Researchers point to several reasons. Its writings glorify violence and social collapse. It has been linked in multiple investigations to individuals involved in extremist crimes. Its decentralized structure makes it difficult to monitor. Its ideology encourages followers to reject moral restraints and embrace chaos and violence. These concerns have led scholars, journalists, and security experts to classify O9A as more than just an occult movement. Instead, they view them as extremist ideology. they can intersect with violent political movements. So far, we've explored the origins of the Order of Nine Angles, and the ideas that have made it one of the most studied extremist occult movements in recent decades. But ideas alone don't tell the whole story. In the next part, we'll examine documented criminal investigations and court cases involving individuals connected to the Order of Nine Angles. We'll separate verified facts from internet rumors and look at why this movement has become a subject of concern for law enforcement around the world. Often the ones that convince people that cruelty is a virtue. In parts 1 and 2, we explored the group's mysterious beginnings, its ideology, and why experts have connected it to the violent extremist networks. Tonight, we're shifting our focus to something even more sobering: documented criminal cases and investigations involving individuals who promoted or identified with O9A ideology. A reminder before we begin. Again, I'm going to say this. This episode is based on publicly documented investigations and court cases. Being interested in the occult does not make someone a criminal, and simply possessing extremist literature does not prove someone committed crimes because of it. Our goal is to examine verified facts while avoiding sensationalism. We also, Paranormal Inc. Ohio does not support the Order of Nine Angles. We do not back O9A. It is something that is just... I heard about this and I watched some things on it and I did a lot of research. And this group is just... it's just so crazy. And I thought it would be a good podcast episode. So that's why we're doing it. From fringe writings to police investigations. For many years, the Order of Nine Angles remained relatively obscure. Its writings circulated in small circles and on niche websites. But during the 2010s, investigators in several countries began noticing something unsettling in multiple unrelated criminal investigations. Suspects possessed O9A literature or openly promoted its ideology online. There was no evidence of a single global command directing these individuals. Instead, investigators described a loose network connected by shared writings, online forums, and extremist beliefs. This decentralized nature made it difficult for law enforcement to determine where the movement ended and where individual actors begin. The United Kingdom. Some of the earliest law enforcement concerns came from the United Kingdom, where the movement is believed to have originated. British counterterrorism investigators examined individuals who promoted O9A material alongside neo-Nazi propaganda. Authorities became increasingly concerned that the group's literature encouraged violence, intimidation, and the rejection of moral restraint. Academic researchers who warned that the O9A writings could appeal to people already drawn toward violent extremist ideologies because they glorified conflict and portrayed brutality as a path to personal transformation. The United States. The movement also drew attention in the United States. One of the most widely reported cases involved Jarrett William Smith, a U.S. Army soldier who was arrested in 2019 after allegedly discussing plans for violent attacks and disturbing bomb-making information online. Court documents indicated that investigators found evidence linking him to O9A-related material and extremist ideology. His case became a major example of how online extremist communities could influence individuals across international borders. Other investigations involved former Canadian Armed Forces reservist Patrick Matthews, who crossed into the United States and became associated with members of the violent extremist group. Investigators alleged that members of the network shared accelerationist beliefs and circulated O9A-related writings alongside neo-Nazi propaganda. These cases highlighted how extremist ideologies could overlap and reinforce one another. When extremism and occultism collide. One of the reasons researchers continue to study O9A is that it doesn't fit neatly into one category. It isn't simply an occult movement. It isn't simply a political movement. Instead, it combines elements of both. Some followers appear primarily interested in occult writings. Others focus almost entirely on extremist political beliefs, and some embrace both. The mixture makes the movement difficult to classify and, according to researchers, potentially attractive to individuals seeking both a sense of identity and a justification for violence. The internet dramatically changed how extremist ideologies spread. Unlike other organizations that relied on meetings or printed newsletter, O9A literature became widely available online. Researchers found that encrypted messaging platforms, online forums, and file sharing sites allowed these writings to circulate internationally. Someone could discover O9A material without ever meeting another member in person. This online environment made it easier for isolated individuals to consume increasingly extreme content. Counterterrorism experts have warned that this is kind of gradual radicalization can occur across many forms of violent extremism, not just the O9A. The human cost. Behind every investigation is a human story. Families shattered, communities traumatized, victims whose lives were forever changed. It's important to remember that extremist ideologies don't exist in a vacuum. When beliefs encourage hatred, glorify violence, or celebrate the suffering of others, real people can become victims. That's why researchers, educators, and law enforcement agencies continue to study movements like the Order of Nine Angles, not because they are mysterious, but because understanding how extremist ideas spread can help prevent future violence. Over the past 3 parts, we've explored the origins of the Order of Nine Angles, its ideology, and documented investigations that brought it to the attention of security agencies around the world. But there is still one final part. In part 4, we'll examine where the movement stands today, how governments and researchers continue to monitor it, the myths that surround it, and what lessons can be learned from studying one of the world's most controversial extremist occult movements. Legacy of Darkness. Tonight we conclude our 4-part investigation into one of the most controversial and disturbing extremist movements to emerge from the occult underground, the Order of Nine Angles, or O9A. For the last 3 parts, we explored the group's mysterious origins, its ideology, and the documented criminal investigations involving individuals who promoted or identified with its writings. Tonight we're asking one final question. Where is the Order of Nine Angles today? And perhaps, more importantly, what can we learn from its story? Let's begin. A movement without a leader. Unlike many extremist organizations, there is no widely recognized public leader standing at the front of the Order of Nine Angles. Researchers describe it as a decentralized movement. Instead of having chapters with membership cards and official headquarters, O9A exists mostly through literature, online discussions, and small groups of individuals who interpret its writings in different ways. The lack of structure makes it difficult to measure its size. Some people who claim to represent O9A may have no connection to anyone else. Others may simply repost its writings online. Because of this, researchers often focus less on counting members and more on tracking the spread of its ideology. Why it continues to attractionism. If the O9A is relatively small, why do governments and researchers continue to study it? The answer lies in its influence rather than its numbers. Security experts have warned that the group's writings have appeared alongside violent neo-Nazi and accelerationist propaganda in several investigations. Guys, sorry I keep stopping. I'm trying not to cough. I'm not feeling too good. I don't want to just keep coughing or sniffling in the episodes. When you hear me kind of stutter or something, I'm just trying not to hack or cough. I know you guys want to hear that in your ears. Rather than trying to recruit large crowds, the ideology appeals to be a much smaller audience, willing to embrace extreme violence and reject conventional morality. That combination has made it a continuing concern for counterterrorism investigators in several countries. Fact versus internet myth. If you spent any time searching for information about O9A online, you've probably come across some unbelievable stories. Claims of secret world leaders, hidden underground temples, ancient bloodlines, supernatural powers, and vast conspiracies controlling governments. The problem is that very little evidence supports many of these claims. Researchers caution the O9A literature often mixes fiction, symbolism, mythology, and ideology together. It has created decades of confusion. Some stories were likely written to shock readers. Others may have been intended to mislead outsiders. And over time, internet rumors have expanded those myths even further. Separating documented facts from sensational stories is one of the biggest challenges in researching this movement. The occult or a tool? One question continues to divide researchers. Did the founders genuinely believe in occult practices, or was the occult simply a tool to attract followers? Some scholars believe at least some participants sincerely embraced the esoteric teachings. Others argue that the occult imagery served primarily as a way to make extremist ideology appear mysterious. Whatever the founders intended, investigators have consistently focused on one issue above all others. Not ritual, not symbolism, but violence. When extremist beliefs encourage people to harm others, that's where law enforcement becomes involved. Lessons from history. History has shown us that dangerous movements often begin on the fringes. Many start with ideas dismissed as too bizarre or too insignificant to matter. Most fade away, some do not. The story of the Order of Nine Angles is a reminder that extremist ideologies can evolve, adapt, and spread in unexpected ways, especially online. Understanding these movements doesn't mean giving them attention or legitimacy. It means recognizing warning signs before violence occurs. Knowledge is one of the strongest tools against manipulation. As we close this investigation, it's worth remembering that the vast majority of people interested in history, religion, or the paranormal are peaceful and curious. Exploring mysteries, subjects is not the same as embracing violent ideology. The Order of Nine Angles stands apart because investigators and researchers have repeatedly documented its association with extremist beliefs that glorify violence and social collapse. We've spent 4 parts examining one of the darkest corners of the modern occult world. We've looked at its mysterious origins, its disturbing philosophy, its links to extremist investigations, and the myths that continue to surround it. Whether history ultimately remembers the Order of Nine Angles as a dangerous ideology, an elaborate myth, or something in between, one thing is certain: that story serves as a reminder that the most frightening forces are often not supernatural. They're ideas that persuade people to abandon empathy, reject truth, and embrace destruction. Those are the monsters we can and should learn to recognize. If you enjoyed this 4-part investigation, be sure to follow Paranormal Inc. Ohio wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a topic you'd like us to investigate, or if you've had a paranormal experience of your own, send us your story. I would love to put you on an episode. Until next time, I'm Ed. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of the history's most unsettling extremist movements. Stay curious, question everything, keep searching for the truth. And remember, sometimes evil doesn't hide in haunted houses. Sometimes it hides in human hearts. Bye, everyone. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and checking out tonight's episode. I love all of you. Again, I am sorry for the stuttering and how my voice sounds, and you'll hear me kind of just sniffle and cough and say words twice. I am not feeling good at all, but I haven't released an episode in a day, and I wanted to get you guys, some more content. I was laying here and I was watching TV. Like I said, I haven't felt good for a few days. And I saw something on the 09A, and I watched it, and it intrigued me. And I dug into the internet about it, and yes, there's a lot of false rumors, but there's also true court documents. And the 09A is a very violent organization. I don't back them. I don't believe in anything they teach or preach. I was really hesitant of making this episode because they really are a terrifying group of people. And again, I want to put this out there. If you own extremist literature, say the 09A, if you own literature like that or extremist groups like that, it does not in any way, shape, or form make you an extremist. It doesn't make you an occultist. It doesn't make you a Nazi. It doesn't make you anything. You have the right to read what you want to read. You're interested in it? Be interested in it. I'm not trying to say that every person that owns ideology or writings from the 09A or other extremist groups are extremists. Yes, there are the ones out there that are extremists, and they're very violent and scary people. But I'm not trying to say that everyone is like that just because you own something that is a writing of the 09A or other extremist groups. Again, I don't back the 09A. I don't believe in what they say. I don't believe in what they do. But I'm glad that there's law enforcement out there trying to track them down and trying to take care of the situation. Violence cannot solve anything. If all you see is violence, all you're going to live is violence. All you see is hatred. All you're going to see is hatred. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter anything like that. All that matters is we have to overcome violence. We have to overcome hatred. So, again, thank you for checking out tonight's episode. I love each and every single one of you, and I hope you had a great night, and you will hear from me in the next one. Bye, everyone.